Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for the last live webinar of the 22-23 series. Since it was Black Friday tomorrow, we thought we would talk about retail marketing, and we've got two guests with us to do that. So without further ado, I will just introduce them. So we've got Anne-Marie Black on my left here from Agnew, and we have Clare Beswick from the Abbey Centre. So if we can start off, Anne-Marie, can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what your role is with Agnew and what it involves?
Yeah, so I am the Senior Digital Marketing Manager within Agnew Group. Agnew Group, for anyone who doesn't know, is one of the largest motor dealers in Northern Ireland. So we represent 9 manufacturers across 15 locations, and then we have other locations for various different services, such as our preparation centre and things like that. So my role is, I suppose, within Agnew Group is mainly within digital marketing. I look after a team of 5, and we sort of manage different specialisations within PPC, SEO, social content and web. And so that's basically my role within it.
Okay, Claire, do you want to tell us a little bit about your job with the Abbey Centre?
I do. So I've been with Abbey Centre now just under 7 years. I come from a marketing agency background. My role there is quite vast, actually. It encompasses everything from the general overarching destination retail marketing strategy right down to actually creating art pieces and content for online and so on. My role officially is described as aiding the housed retailers in delivering their vision for their shopper journey, which makes it sound quite fancy.
Okay.
But essentially, it's knowing what's in the shops, what's happening in the shops on the ground, what's happening from a digital level, and pushing it out to our community and our core shopper.
Okay, if we could start having a look at the car industry then, Anne-Marie. I mean, it's gone through, there have been some pretty significant developments in the last few years where you've seen platforms like Kazoo and Cinch coming along, and the idea that, you know, I'm sure pre-COVID that nobody would ever buy a car online, and suddenly everybody did, because the opportunity to go and visit the showroom was taken away from them. Can you tell us a little bit about what this sort of ongoing impacts of that have been on the sector as we sort of, I suppose we're approaching the first post-COVID Christmas?
Yeah.
And sort of what you've seen and how that's changed how you your role?
I suppose when you're referring to the disruptors, I suppose, that wanted to come into the market, you talk about Kazoo and Cinch. I suppose Kazoo is a bit of a controversial one in terms of it had a lot of investment. It wanted to be a disruptor in terms of fully online sales for cars, and at that time, as you said, people couldn't conceive that there could be a sale of a car online, and let alone it be solely online and a solely car buying journey online. So I think whether they have achieved that, I suppose, from their launch in the UK in 2019 is up for discussion. And I suppose recently you've seen with Kazoo, there has been, they've pulled out of mainland Europe, they've pulled out of Italy, Spain, Germany, some of those key countries, and they're focusing their core market on the UK. Some of their strategy moves as well in terms of their acquisitions would sort of raise an eye. So that they bought Imperial Cars, which was a physical location. So they came into the market wanting to solely base their sales online, and then they acquired a physical location. So when you look at sort of the disruptors that are coming into the market, I think they really benefited and helped in terms of innovation and the developments that have been made in the automotive industry over the last few years. I think, again, COVID really took that on even further. And I suppose the developments that happened over COVID in the automotive industry in terms of technology, online innovation, in terms of the virtual reality test drives, the online configurators, everything like that. Everything sort of happened overnight in a couple of months, where it probably would have taken years if you didn't have those online disruptors coming in and you didn't have COVID. So from that point of view, I think the industry has come on leaps and bounds, and there has been a lot of innovation. In terms of that continuing, I think there always is going to be a place for physical dealerships and physical locations, and that's where I'm alluding to Kazoo's acquisition of Imperial Cars, and they had said that they did it for click and collect, and to facilitate that, which is interesting because they sort of then reverted to a retailer model. So when you look at the car industry in general, a lot of consumers, they do want to move digitally, and you can see that through COVID, you can see that through the stats and all of the analytics and everything within that. But at the same time, when COVID then, when the lockdown ceased and you sort of got all the dealerships back open, you can see there are people who want to return, and there's certain elements of the car buying journey that still benefit from that physical experience. I think a lot of the discovery and the research phase is now primarily digital, and that is sort of a change that we're still seeing across the board.
It's sort of reflective of, you heard a lot of conversations during COVID about how that's it, everybody's just going to buy everything online now, and all the high streets better just shut down and open up coffee shops, and because nobody's ever going to want to go to a shop again, and you're sort of thinking, really, we've gone to it's not just the buying stuff. Is the reason you go to a shop. There's a whole social element to it too, isn't there?
Some things are just better face to face.
And it's there is no black and white. There's not, as as usual, there's an awful lot of grey.
No, 100%.
And I think the point you make, I think, is an interesting one, that it's accelerated some of the changes and made people realise maybe a bit faster than they would have done what is possible to do with technology and online, but it's never going to replace I think the physical sort of retail experience.
I think it also opens up opportunities, I think, for both online and offline. I'm sure, Claire, you're the same. In terms of how offline and online is being looked at, they're no longer two separate things. That customer who goes along the buy-in journey, they're not solely online and they're not solely offline. They mix between the two, and that's where the opportunity with offline and with physical stores and with all retail, you have that opportunity to align online and offline and produce that whole experience. I think most people use online as a way of convenience, but it's not always the most convenient option either. So you still have opportunities there for physical locations, and I think that always will be present in some form, whether that shifts in terms of how it looks from the in-store experience and the different sort of, I suppose, incentives to go in-store. That might change, but ultimately people still will want to go in. They'll want to explore different things. They'll want to sort of have the inspiration that then they can, even if they don't buy in-store, they can later go on and buy it online. So
online,
I think
definitely has its limitations, even in terms of shopper journey, ease of path to purchase. Sometimes it's quite complicated to actually purchase an item, especially if you're not internet savvy. You're not constantly on a computer. It's quite difficult to do.
What's the experience of the tenants of the Abbey Centre been in terms of things have opened up again? I mean, are we back to the sort of levels of footfall and visitor numbers that we would have seen pre-COVID?
Well, we find our footfall is steadily increasing and has been. We find that maybe there's a slight slowdown in terms of frequency of visit, but basket spend has changed. People might have spread their money out throughout the month. Now they're making one or two journeys and spending everything in one go. But again, that could be down to the likes of cost of living, price of diesel, petrol, and so on. You don't want to be making 5 journeys when you can get it all done in one fell swoop. We find that even in terms of the retailers themselves, quite a lot of them had moved away from physical retail locations, from built environment on solely online. One of them being for us, Pandora, had tried this. It was part of Argento. It was owned by Argento. They then bought back the franchise license, and Pandora now reopen in Abbey Centre tomorrow in a physical location again, owning their own brand. So we find that as much as even retailers have tried the online method, solely online, they still need that omni-channel presence. They need that window shopper. They need that person, that presence to come in. It helps in terms of building a community.
You see stories around, the job cuts that were announced at Meta there recently. They announced the 11,000 jobs, and Zuckerberg came out and said immediately, they jumped too quickly in assuming that this was a change in behaviour that was a permanent change in behaviour. And it's maybe because it sort of was, it aligned with their own belief system, I suppose, in terms of what they wanted to see happening.
Yeah.
So they took this as validation and thought, right, this is the way the world goes now. We put all our eggs in this basket.
Yeah.
And suddenly you see all the graphs about, behaviours, and there was a anomaly. Anybody that looks back on this in 20 and 30 years time will say, what was that big, either a big spike or big dip about? And it was all, that was COVID. But you see then after it, it's sort of, the line is maybe a little bit higher than it was, but it's largely on the same trajectory. Yeah. So that, back to your point, that it has maybe accelerated change a little bit, but not a massive.
And I think if it was the sole answer to everything, if going fully online was, COVID would be the time that would sort of bring that to the fore, and people would maintain online. But I think there is always a place for it, and I think probably the in-store and the physical offline experience is probably going to be less about sales as well, because if you can sort of entice someone, inspire them. I know you talked about your Nike experience in New York. Yeah. And if you can also get to understand that customer offline as well, that can then help with the online journey. So if you know someone has been in your store offline, they've maybe browsed and you've some data on that experience, you can then use that through your email communications. You can use that through social personalization, ads, everything else.
The Nike one was. I'm gonna refer to the Nike one again for anybody who doesn't know about my experience in the Nike store in New York, which probably don't. But I know I bored my wife and kids to tears about the impact of this. But they didn't have any tills. There was, you walked in and you could scan the barcode on the Nike app on your phone and pay for the thing there, and then just put the stuff in a bag, drop the hanger in a box and walk out. And I wasn't going to buy anything in the Nike store until I saw this, and I thought, I want to buy something now, right? Just to see, does this work? Yeah. And it did, and for me it was a brilliant example of integrating those two things. Yeah. And how do you make that in-store experience as trackable as the digital experience? Take the tills away. And now we know who's in the store, what they bought. So the online and the offline is now perfectly integrated, and it's the first time I've seen that. I still haven't seen that anywhere else. So if you can think, thinking about, I noticed Clare Primark posted a 43% increase in sales recently, right? Despite not having any online presence and starting to think about click and collect, isn't that right? Yeah. It's coming, but it's not there yet. And the flagship store at Bank Buildings is just down there, and all the numbers around the redevelopment of that, I think I heard the number 100 million sort of invested. Yeah. If that would suggest that there is definitely a future for high street retail, wouldn't it?
Definitely. It costs more to refurb Primark than it did to build Castle Court.
Really? My goodness.
Definitely, there's a presence there. I think with Primark, well, it speaks volumes that they've invested that much money in their physical retail location. It's offering an experience. The store offers an experience with the likes of the Disney Cafe, Beauty Bar, and so on. And as you were saying, Amri, that's what it's about. It's about that experiential, rather than just transactional. I think we found, especially during COVID, that there's a lot of investment in your online platforms, not so much in the built environment. As the tide has now changed and that foot traffic is there again, it's time to reinvest in our high streets. Okay. There is a demand there, and we need to fill that demand. We find that our customers are very demonstrative in their demands. They know what they want, and they don't want to be seen as just a buyer anymore. They want to be part of a community. They want to feel like they are immersed in the lifestyle and the vibe of the brand. And the way to do that then is to invest, especially in smaller high streets as well, and in smaller shopping malls. Invest in the experiential. Don't just have it as like a till point. What can we get you to buy? Can we upsell, and can we get you back out the front door? Make it more of an integrated experience. Yeah, and then maybe I find with retailers, they maybe collate their in-store sales and then sort of pit it against their online sales. It should just be sales generally, especially if you're marketing a brand or a lifestyle brand. It's just sales. It shouldn't be divided into location per location. Retail is 24/7 now. Yeah. Although maybe a shopping mall is only open from 9 to 9, you have your research online, you have social media being pumped out all night, you have word of mouth, you have people meeting up with their friends. Retail should be 24/7.
Yeah, because there's nothing to say, I know from watching the shopping habits of my wife and daughter largely. What's to say that people haven't gone to the high street retail store and tried several things on, so they know what size works in a certain store,
That's
and
it.
then they order it
And I
online.
think-
So you can't.
Yeah.
It's last click attribution stuff,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't say, oh well, it's our online shop that sold that dress. Well, no,
Yeah.
it isn't, because they tried the dress on.
Yeah, there
Shoppers,
is a,
yeah, they're
yeah.
going to make paradoxical decisions. They're
Yeah.
never going to be one or the other. I think it's more it's not like a one size fits all approach
Yeah.
to retail. It has to be what fits for you in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's what works for you.
Yeah.
So whether it's trying on in store, buying online, collecting in store, or using like Amazon lockers, or or maybe it's seeing something online, thinking I need to go to the store to try it on, whatever it may be, it has to work for you. And there's no sort of clear one way path to purchase. It's now just a constant milieu of
And is
online and
that
offline.
high street retail now has to be different, because if it is purely a transactional experience, online wins
Yeah, it's not going to work
all the time.
Although
because it's going to be more convenient the majority of times. I mean,
yeah,
really
the
say-
majority. There are exceptions. We talked about essentials during COVID, things like banking. I just find banking is easier face to face when you're dealing with codes, passwords, and you have a gazillion of these things. It becomes difficult. It's just easier to go into a bank, especially if you're an older person.
If
as
there
well,
are any
again,
banks
not-
left, don't
Yeah, not internet savvy. This is the thing. At Abbey Centre, one of our banks is actually expanding, and it's growing in size, and offering that experiential and wanting people to come into the bank, to come into the physical location and discuss, their banking needs and their options, and they find that the physical environment is the best place to do that, which is sort of quite not in line with the rest of the banking retailers out there. But
is the Amazon lockers another mechanism for getting people in to the physical location?
Yeah.
Because when they're there, they're going to think, oh, I need shampoo, and oh, I need razor blades, and oh, I might
want
have
a
a look in here
coffee.
too, and I'm going to buy a
Yeah.
coffee,
Yeah.
and I'm paying for parking, and
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. Is that one of the new mechanisms? Because you see it almost everywhere now, don't you? That a lot of
Yeah.
places have these
Again,
Amazon
that's, I
lockers.
suppose, the retail destinations way of integrating online and offline, in that we have Amazon lockers. Come Cyber Monday, I'll be pushing Cyber Monday big style, because I know that people can collect in the locker, and the chances of them popping onto the mall, buying a coffee, visiting the pharmacy, whatever they need to do, their essentials, their convenience shopping, or even just browsing, that's the way to get them into the centre. That's the way to drive that foot traffic.
I think going back to the car industry experience then, Anne-Marie, what changes have you seen in that customer buying journey, if you like, that have been accelerated a little bit by the COVID experience?
Yeah, I think massively across the full industry, you would sort of say that that discovery phase is nearly purely digital. You see that visits to dealerships, although they're still there, the frequency might be less. So years ago, you might have had people going in and maybe doing a full tour of the whole of the Boucher Road, to sort of see what car they wanted, what model they wanted, asking questions on the different things. You find now people are a lot more informed, a lot more knowledgeable about what exactly it is that they need. And so the frequency of their visits to the dealership are maybe decreased. But then the efficiency of that is probably heightened. So you have people coming in and then they know exactly what their goal is, and they're making use of their time in the dealership, whether that is to view different cars and make comparisons and things, but they know they're going in with that sort of goal that I've seen this online, I've understood this. And I think there is a figure, I think 9 out of 10 people, so 90% of people who already enter the dealership know exactly
What they want.
or they've already researched it online, which is massive.
Is that a big change though? I would have always thought that. My wife worked in the car industry for a while, and for 10 years I think she was in Ford, and that was always a part of the car experience, wasn't it? That people have sort of narrowed down their options before, because you have Ford people, you have Vauxhall people, you have BMW people,
Yeah.
people have just seem to affiliate themselves with certain car brands.
Yeah, and I think people are loyal to different brands. I think that probably is a given with automotive. But you'll see now, I think, with the change in electric and everything else, that's where that knowledge base comes in.
Okay.
I know me and Claire were discussing it just before the webinar, but there are a lot of questions around that people need answered, and they don't want to sit in a showroom and talk about it for an hour. They would rather go on, read reviews, read blogs, look up different tools to see what's best for them, whether it is purely electric, hybrid, all the different options, what each of the options mean as well. So I think from that point of view, electric is one of the things that are really pushing that discovery phase and people wanting to know more. And I suppose years ago people didn't even consider reserving or buying online. I think one of the changes though has been that people are now readily going on and reserving. They're prepared to reserve or buy a vehicle that they haven't even seen or test drive. So it is, that would be one of the main changes as well.
Okay.
I think as a shopper, when you've researched online, especially when it comes to buying a car, you feel more informed.
Yeah.
So when you go to a showroom, you feel less stupid.
Well, I think that's universally that's the case. I mean, I think there was always a sort of, personally, I think there was always a sort of intimidation factor.
Yeah.
Whenever you were talking to somebody potentially in a car dealership, and you thought, I don't want to ask what may appear to be a really stupid question.
It's kicking the tire.
Yeah.
You don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
The consumer is,
I know. Yeah.
the consumer does
I'm
have a
sitting
lot
in
more
like,
power.
I know with
this.
Can you pop the bonnet for me there? Because I know anything about.
So I can see how
what's
shiny
going
it
on.
is.
Yeah. Wow, that looks clean.
But the consumer does have a lot more power, I suppose, going into the dealerships now that they know exactly, and you can't really spoof anybody anymore. They probably know more than you about the model by the time they come in. So I think that's one of the things that has come from digital.
Okay. Think by Google published an article. We've touched on a little bit there, but they and of course they're massively in favour of the online shift largely, but the future of UK shopping and the online and the in-store experience becoming more integrated, similarly to the Nike experience. I mean, I'm assuming that's something that we're going to see more of.
Yeah, there's more a marrying, I think, of online and offline. Yeah. It has to be a healthy blend of the two. Yeah. And a healthy blend of also other channels as well, even like TikTok.
Yeah.
I find that my kids use TikTok as a form of Google. They use it as a search engine.
Yeah.
So even shopping via the likes of social media is increasing in terms of TikTok and so on when it comes to younger audiences. So I think there does have to be a healthy blend of not just online and offline, but taking the entire, encompass the entire market. You're going to have physical locations. You're maybe going to have experiential pop-ups and so on, and you're going to use social media on the back of it. I was reading today, ASOS for Black Friday have a touring roaming pop-up shop.
Right.
You can't necessarily buy anything from ASOS there, but you can use, the grab machines, and you can play games and you can win prizes just to push that ASOS Black Friday offer, which I think is 80% off, something like that. So they want you going online throughout the weekend once you've experienced this roaming pop-up. So
there seems to be a thing that this idea of destination retail now, so that the store you visit these stores that, in comparison, if you teleported somebody from 10 years ago into a retail store now, they'd be like, why is there nothing in this shop? It's because there just doesn't seem to be as much in the store, because people realize they have to make that experience of being able to move around the store and have a look at things more enjoyable than it was potentially whenever you arrived too late on a Saturday afternoon and everything was off the hangers and it was impossible to find anything anymore. Now they know they don't need to do that, because they've got the online shop that has all the stock that people need. So all they need to do in the physical retail outlet is say, you definitely want to buy something from us. We don't really mind whether you buy it here or whether you pop on the phone while you're having a coffee outside afterwards.
Or a lot of stores have iPads in store.
So
you can order then and there.
And that's part of that omni-channel, bridging that gap between, even, when people ask for your email as well with the receipt, having all that data of what exactly you purchased offline or essentially, or in store. I think that helps bridge that gap into integrating online and offline as well.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it again before the webinar, but it just seems like everywhere's running a DFS sale now. It's Black Friday tomorrow, which we talked about is basically Black November. But there seems to be big discounts everywhere all the time anyway now. So, and I know from a digital perspective, that's how you increase the clicks and get those online purchases. But does that make it harder for physical retailers in terms of how they approach discounting and stuff whenever they're competing with that?
The online
There's so
element.
much of that discounting that's going on online.
Yeah, I think I don't actually think so. I think the two work hand in hand. Even the likes of franchises and so on that wouldn't necessarily be affiliated with the online channel, it might still have the brand, but they're not affiliated in terms of sales. People will see the online and it will still drive them in store to purchase, and again, vice versa. So because there's such a blend now and such a marrying of the two, it works hand in hand. And all sales are good sales, so it's heading in the right direction. I find that a lot of the retailers now are being very specific about the items that they're reducing. So there's a lot of focus on tech and electrical. And then as the month, Black November, progresses, you might find that the discounts and so on become more store-wide, or using their online and using the data that they have, the discounts become more personalised. Yeah. So they're for you, following your cookies, things that you've looked at, talked about and so on. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You want a discount that's personal to you, something that you're going to use, so that works. I find in terms of consumers embracing Black Friday, a PwC report had announced today that more consumers now are back to sort of pre-COVID level in terms of their interest in Black Friday. Black Friday attracts more male consumers than it does females. Females
love a bargain.
They do. Females tend to buy for Christmas. This just shows you stereotypical.
I bought 3 things off Amazon today that I don't think I need.
For you, though,
for me, yeah.
Males buy for themselves. Females buy for Christmas to get organised for Christmas. Yeah. So the man's like, what can I get? What's in it for me?
There's a deal.
So that's it. And males are notoriously difficult to attract, especially in terms of a shopping centre environment. Typically, they don't want to go shopping. They don't want to go shopping. No. The only difference being when it comes to Black Friday and there's a bargain to be had, in which case, they all want to go shopping then. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, you see some, going back to the car industry thing again, I mean, you notice the sales model in that industry. Some manufacturers are moving to the subscription idea, that you don't own. It's leasing on steroids almost. That you don't own the car, you will lease the car from the manufacturer. What's behind that? Where's that coming from, and what impact does that have for car dealers like Agnew's?
I suppose the main thing driving it is flexibility, consumer flexibility, and that taking away that sort of commitment and ownership, and making it a more flexible sort of buying experience, and giving consumers more flexibility over that. What effect it'll have, I suppose, on dealerships, no one currently knows, but what it seems to be doing as well is sort of bridging that network gap, and sort of looking at the overall, when we're talking about integrating online and offline, the manufacturer is almost sort of setting up a network, and being able to sort of take that, you're sort of purchasing from virtual showrooms, online and everything else, but then you're also then embracing that offline experience too within the showrooms, and it's all linked. So it looks like from the manufacturer's point of view, they maybe are trying to integrate all of the online and offline sort of experiences, and trying to sort of bridge that gap as well. And then obviously there's the analytics and everything that goes behind that, and the customer data, the benefits of having all of that at your disposal, that sort of that customer inside out. And I suppose that's probably what's driving it from a manufacturer point of view.
Because it's the whole direct to consumer thing has become a conversation that you've seen over the last 10 years, probably accelerated in the last 5. And it started for me as a male shopper. It started with very low ticket things, razor blades, right? Yeah. I hate going to Boots. So when somebody says you don't have to anymore, just pay us a subscription every month. So Dollar Shave Club first, and then I'm a Harry's customer. But then you notice within a couple of years of that, it's back to your convenience idea. You walk into Boots now and there's Harry's stalls. Harry's was, a DTC online experience, and within a couple of years now, all the razors are in Boots. Is that back to what you said about sometimes you forget that you need something and you need it now?
Yeah, that's it. And it's maybe the instant gratification of buying something, even like a chocolate bar at the till point. That people still want that. People still want sensual shopping as well. You want to touch something, feel it, smell it, look at it. You might when it comes to things like razor blades, you don't know how they're going to feel. So you might want to buy one to begin with, check it out, see if you want to buy one. You know, it's that kind of initial face-to-face contact or physical contact with the brand.
It's the packaging
that
as well.
people
It's all
still
of that
seek.
stuff,
Yeah.
isn't it? You hear all the stories
quality and
about, you know,
everything
people
as well.
bought stuff off Amazon that's ended up being a lot smaller.
Yeah,
Or bigger
minuscule.
than they thought it was going to
Yeah.
be, you know,
Yeah.
because you don't get any idea of scale. And the whole idea of how packaging and point of sale material is so important
Yeah.
for luring people in.
Yeah.
There's other even environmental factors, you know, like delivery costs, and there's a whole emphasis now on sustainability. You know, it might be easier just to go to a shop and do that one fell swoop and pick up everything you need, rather than have an Amazon visit your house 10 times with 10 different packages. Sports Direct tend to do that. It all comes out in different bits and bobs. And even then, in terms of the consumer, you might be slightly more aware of how your data is used, and, you know, privacy elements and GDPR and so on. I actually personally hate when you're in a shop and someone asks for your email address for the receipt. You think, just give me the receipt. I don't want to give you my email. I don't want you chasing me. Now, from a marketer's perspective, fabulous. But from a general consumer, you sort of think, oh, now I'm going to get, you know, a million emails to my inbox every month.
I actually prefer it. Again, I prefer it. It's just
I'd
more
be the same
convenient.
It's more convenient. No,
I'd be the
I
same.
don't.
It's more convenient.
I
You
think
go-
as a digital marketer as well, you're sort of aware of
what
sort
they're-
of
The
what they're
reasoning
doing.
why.
reasoning
Yeah,
behind
you
that,
get
yeah.
it. Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
sort of what they're trying to achieve. And so I would block everything
Yeah.
down. I sort of, no, I just have the paper receipt and away you go. So no, I completely agree with that. I also think the in-store experience, I know when we're talking more sort of about shopping centre as well, it's more of a social experience too.
Yeah.
You plan days out with friends, family, and you want to go and you want to have a browse, you want to have a look, and you want all these things to be aspirational too. Like, you mightn't be at a stage where you want to buy something there and then, but socially, you just want to be involved. You want to be in and amongst it, and as you said,
It's
you
back
want to
to
see the real sort of thing before you actually commit to buying it.
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
back
times.
to that. I just think that, you know, there are many more reasons that we go to shops and high streets than actually buying stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I think COVID probably accelerated our understanding of the fact that we are very social animals.
Yeah.
You know, and we like being in those social environments, which is why we're prepared to go and stand in queues at the Christmas market forever, and because we just
It's an
we're in the
experience.
company, it's the atmosphere, it's the whole camaraderie thing that exists around that
Retail,
whole shopping
it is a
experience.
leisure pursuit. You know, people do go for a day out, and we find even it's like we'll take a wee run to Abbey Centre, you know, because there's nothing else to do, so you have no intention of buying anything.
Yeah.
It's just something to do, and it's indoors and it's warm, and you're not going to get blew away in the wind and the rain. So we find that it becomes more and more of a leisure pursuit. Even for the likes of teenagers who, you know, can't go to the bar, they're not old enough, they don't want to go to the cinema, it's expensive. They'll maybe meet up with their friends, go have a milkshake or something,
Sit in the
have a
mall.
walk, a bite. Yeah, so it's became that kind of like hang out at the mall thing again.
Yeah, the Americanization of
Yeah.
us all. Yeah.
And then we find the addition of things like, you know, USB sockets in the food court and that, where someone can charge their phone and stuff. That just
Well, that's life changing
Yeah.
for teenagers, isn't it?
That's it, you know,
the
they
battery
can-
anxiety disappears.
they can all
then,
meet up and not talk to each other.
Yeah. I've got,
Still use their
battery
phone.
anxiety is a real thing for children now. I mean, my 5-year-old in the house, and he obviously just starting to learn how to read numbers, and he's like, you know, I need to plug my iPad in. I've only got 7% left. You know? Whereas when they're 2 or 3, it just dies. You know. now they understand battery anxiety. So,
Yeah.
That
I mean, you're convenient. The convenience element is an interesting one, because I mean, from the job you do, like managing a centre that has lots of tenants, I'm just fascinated by how the complexity of making sure you have the tenant mix right
yeah.
in order to make sure that it works for everyone.
For everybody, yeah. We're 98% capacity at the minute. So Abbey Centre is basically full, and we find that during COVID especially it highlighted our need for essentials. So we have a doctor's surgery, banking, pharmaceuticals, Specsavers who work with the NHS and so on. They're your essential stores. They're stores that you need to visit your high street or your local shopping mall to chat to someone, to engage with someone. Then we find that the fashion on top of that obviously works. Everybody likes fashion. They like the sensual experience of seeing, smelling, touching, and so on. We find of late the jewellery is performing extremely well. I think it's people investing ahead of Christmas. And then we have that tech element, which works primarily for a male audience who like to go and browse
look
phones.
at the speakers and the TVs.
Yeah, so it keeps them interested. But having that nice mix of stores that work for everyone, and then of communal areas, seating areas as well. So we have like a lovely food court area, in which case you can go in and sit down. You know, we find that especially with the older generation, if they're slightly lonely, they've been at home all day, there's no one to speak to, it's nice to just go into an environment, even if you're not speaking to anyone, you're people watching and you feel part of that community, and that works. So I think there was a big downer, basically, Debbie Downer, on shopping centres of late, and people, especially with the influx of online, and people thought, oh, they're depressing and there's empty stores and there's no need for them anymore. COVID possibly, as well as accelerating the need for digital capabilities, it accelerated that idea that you need a hub, a community hub, somewhere to go, if not just for the transactional, to experience that social aspect, to people watch, to hang out, to chat, to meet friends and so on. And I think that's where the shopping centre is going now. It's going into more of we're moving towards more of a placemaking strategy to make it more of a community hub. So my focus for next year is very much on, community health, well-being, combating loneliness, and so on and so on.
Okay. One of the things I mentioned in that Think by Google report, Anne-Marie, was about generic queries becoming more popular than branded ones. So, best sofa, best family car, all that sort of stuff. What impact does that have potentially on the work that you're doing on the digital side then with Agnew's?
Yeah, I suppose from an SEO point of view, and you can see it, I suppose, within a lot of the SEO research tools and things, that they're moving towards sort of categorizing your keywords by the intent behind it. So those broad and generic keywords, you sort of have to look as to what part of the buying journey are they at. Most times that's at the very first discovery stage, and then categorizing that down into when someone then has the model, the exact model, that they're closer in intent to actually purchasing or reserving, and then obviously when they put in indicators like buy now or buy online cars, whatever. So from our point of view,
is that about designing content just for each stage of that journey? So it's educational stuff at the top, moving through to more detailed information, and then sort of call to action sort of stuff at the bottom.
So it's ensuring from an SEO point of view that you have all of the content needs met for every single stage of the journey. So categorizing, I suppose, that user journey while creating the content and knowing exactly at what stage you're aiming that content towards. So whenever, how
closely are you? I mean, how agile does that have to be in terms of your campaign management from a digital perspective whenever you're trying to drive all that traffic and awareness? Yeah,
I suppose it depends on the different models and stuff that are available, but you would sort of have a standard journey that you would go through. You would know as well what content,
because we're all very, very predictable.
And things like frequently asked questions and stuff are standard, and you would have them. Then you'd have more reactive sort of content around new product launches, new events, things like that, and then you would sort of know from that where you sort of tier that content, and how you can categorize that to then help in the buyer journey. So you'd have different as well call to actions for different levels of intent. So if a piece of content is mainly geared towards transactional, it would have a transactional call to action. If it's mainly geared towards discovery and things, you might have find out further information, give us a call, whatever it is. So Okay.
The another thing about the car showroom experience that struck me was, particularly for a lot of the high-end brands, that showroom experience was a big part of the sales process, and a big reason that you retained that customer loyalty very often. I'm sure COVID had an impact on that in terms of the high-end brands, and that that important part of their differentiator, I feel like, was taken away from them, and suddenly it became a little bit harder to distinguish them from some of the other brands.
Yeah, and I think the key thing with COVID, obviously, that stopped all of that. You didn't have your nice cup of tea or your nice cup of coffee, and I suppose making the customer, still feel that they were being well communicated with, looked after. They're the key things that those premium brands sort of need to get across, and they were done then in different ways throughout COVID, in terms of looking after the customer, giving guidance on how to safely collect a car, how to safely enter a showroom then eventually when it opened up, and then email communication as well throughout. So it was maintaining that level of communication, and just making sure that at all times the customer was at the heart of everything. And I think that's all really that premium brands could do in that sense, in order to replace that sort of level of
customer experience.
Customer experience, yeah.
In terms of the job you do, Claire, with the Abbey Centre, I mean, I'm sure digital's part of the mix there too.
Oh, big time, yeah.
So what sort of digital activity are you
in terms of digital marketing, we do a lot of Google advertising, a lot of video content on YouTube. Our PPC the call to action there was always clicks, and now we're looking at calls. And we find that in terms of foot traffic, calls would deliver more of a conversion. A conversion for me is feet on the ground, which then will hopefully ultimately result in a sale in store in either one of the stores, either retail outlet. We find that as our strategy has progressed since I'd started 7 years ago, I find that it moved from traditional media more into a digital focus. So now, no matter what digital media I book, I always look for the digital element that has to be there, not just as an add-on, either as the core of the digital marketing, or as an add-on to, there's never just going to be like a press ad, there's going to have to be some sort of digital element, because it makes tracking easier. And it all comes down to then the tracking and the analytics and proving the worth of the advertising. I find that digital is invaluable in terms of social media for a shopping centre, completely invaluable. In terms of generating, for the likes of a fashion retailer, our own product PR, and putting out, I love a listicle, so putting out like, the top 5 glittery handbags for Christmas, or hygge season's coming up, what are you going to, sleep in, cozy PJs and things. That works so well, and it actually drives sales as well. And people like to see a product. They like to know about it.
Things like the events that you would run, I mean, we're going to see like lots of children singing under Christmas trees soon, because who doesn't love listening to kids sing Christmas carols, I'm sure that stuff provides a lot of shareable content as well that gets shared by your users, if you like, which is
that's it. It's
dream,
kind of
it?
Across that spectrum of channels. If there's like a kid's choir singing, that the mummy turns up and the auntie and the granny and blah, 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 and they might shop when they're there, and they're all going to film it, and they're all going to share it on their socials, and then their friends are going to share it, and everyone's going to say it's lovely. And
so in terms of the metrics that are driven by feet on the ground, stuff like that is what you want to create, things that people will share.
That's it, even in terms of on mall activity, we find that the focus again is back towards that community hub and creating that placemaking. So we work quite a bit with the local council and have events like Keep Warm and Well this winter for our kind of older shopper, whereby we were handing out weighted blankets and so on. It's quite sad that we have to do this, but it's necessary in this time. We would do like CPR skills, life-saving skills, teaching people how to work a defib with staff training limited. So our activity is very much focused towards a value concept. What value does the shopper get out of visiting the shopping centre? And it's that then additional, it's something that they can partake in, it's something that they're going to go away with a knowledge or a skill that they didn't know they were going to pick up when they were popping into Boots for their Harry's razors.
I mean, does that, I'm assuming that just all goes back to your point earlier about trying to be a sort of hub of the community.
It's trying to become central to the community, which then will drive your frequency of visit when you know that you can go to the likes of Abbey Centre and not only do your essential shopping, maybe have a browse, but you can also then partake in something that's happening, something that's free as well. Perhaps get a giveaway or a freebie on the back of it.
Okay, we're coming to the end of this now, so I mean we can't let the webinar pass without mentioning that it's Black Friday tomorrow. So start with you, Emery. I mean, the car industry doesn't really engage in the whole Black Friday thing yet, does it? Do they?
Not really, no. I think there are players like Arnold Clark and things, they would have Black Friday deals, but no, not necessarily within, it's not a big, massive thing within the automotive industry.
It's not going to lead to a massive surge in demand. It's probably, you probably know what demand is.
Yeah.
It's pretty predictable.
Yeah. And I suppose our busiest time of the year is January, so December is and November, you're sort of gearing up to that busiest time of the year. You're sort of
Why is that?
We have it's due to plate changes that occur in January, and that's why that surge then happens in January. But we do have quarterly offers and everything every quarter that are ongoing, and so Black Friday just isn't something that
I think if it was to happen in the automotive industry, it would make me not trust the brand. You would think, why is it so heavily discounted? What's wrong with that? Why are they getting rid of those? That car, whatever it might be. Yeah, I think it works for certain industries, but not across the board.
What about at the Abbey Centre then? I mean, I'm sure I'm sure there's plenty going on there tomorrow.
All I can think about is Black Friday.
No, sure,
a few stores are opening at 8 tomorrow. Normally they'd open at 9. River Island being one of them. I think it's Vodafone being another one of them. So we're expecting, although we've had maybe offers all week, we're expecting some sort of offer bonanza happening tomorrow.
Okay. And will people just turn up because they know there will be offers on? Will it be busier than usual tomorrow morning?
I think with the amalgamation of online and offline, people are very, very savvy. They've taken control of their wallets. They know what they're coming to buy. They know what they're there for. And they'll wait on that product. Have they done
research, do you think, online before watching to see which products are going down?
Yeah.
And then they go in.
And then they'll visit. Yeah. And they're in with a physical list. Ticking off the women are anyway preparing for Christmas. The men are just wandering aimlessly.
Have you got everything? I think so.
Buying stuff for themselves
until 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve. It's like, oh no.
It'll be a big weekend, and then even a big Monday with Cyber Monday, and the likes of us having the Amazon lockers will know that'll drive foot traffic as well. But we find that this is the Christmas period. This is the start of it. Yeah. People have started really early this year. Whether it's to spread the cost, of Christmas across the 2-month period, but
probably a lot to do with delivery and issues as well, and sort of that
Royal Mail
that fear around, because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of sort of fear around not getting stuff on time. So I'd say that probably has pushed people as well towards the high street, to sort of combat that.
Yeah. You touched on it a little bit, Claire, with mentioning cost of living crisis and that sort of thing. Do you expect to see any sort of softening of demand over the next couple of months as a result of that? Are you seeing it already? Or is the general feeling still pretty strong at the minute?
I think this year Black Friday will work to the retailer's advantage because people are waiting on discounted items. When the prices go back up again, January is always pretty much a dead month for retail anyway. I think we'll see a bit of a slowdown then coming into Q1. But for us, it's our chance to sort of refresh, refocus on our customer, get to know them better. As we said, it doesn't all come down to the retail and the transactional, so it's just what can we offer then that's still going to drive people in store, even if it's a really small purchase. What are they going to get in the back of that? And we do value our shoppers, so it's what additional value can we offer them? I do think the cost of living though will bite come Christmas. There maybe be a lot of credit card hangover come next year, which people then will have to deal with. So we're sort of anticipating a slowdown around Q1, but it won't be indefinitely. People always will come back. They'll come back to retail and they'll come back to just purchasing. It's just a case of maybe shoppers being a bit more cautious and a bit more well informed with their online research pre-shopping.
Yeah, and I mean with the relatively high ticket items like cars. I'd imagine the car industry is pretty well versed in knowing how this runs. Yeah. Once we hit once the R word happens. Yeah.
I think as well,
people put off that car that they were gonna replace. They might just hold on to for another little while longer.
Yeah, I think we have seen a surge in service and parts and interest in that. So you wonder as well, are people maybe looking to fix car already sort of issues instead of buying? But I think overall within the industry, I think Q3 saw a bit of a slowdown in used cars. In terms of the Northern Irish market, I think we're protected a bit compared to the general UK market. But even electric is continuing to grow, and that was seen in Q3 as well. So I think, and then January is our biggest month usually. So I think it's difficult to say from a car perspective, especially then with electric coming on. There is a push towards electric.
I think actually the R word might flip it on its head and it'll drive people towards electric.
Potentially.
Because I've been saying I need to replace my car.
Yes.
I need a new gearbox. Anybody wants to help? And I was thinking, actually, I'll just get rid of that car and move towards electric then. If I'm going to have to eventually, I might as well bite the bullet and do it now.
Yeah.
So I think people might...
For cost savings,
I think the whole cost of living, because the fuel is such a central part of the cost of living problem. I think it is focusing everybody's minds
on
now
electric.
On, how do we make this problem go away? And ultimately, it's about trying to find an affordable electric solution. I mean, ultimately, electric's still so new, isn't it? That there aren't sufficient of them on the used car market yet.
Yeah, but that will change over time, and I suppose there will be increasingly more and more over time. But we are seeing used ones already coming through. But ultimately, again, the supply chain issues and everything have evened out. So we are starting to see sort of improvements in lead times and everything else as well, which will ultimately help with electric and the supply of electric as well, which had been an issue during COVID just due to lockdowns and production output and things like that. So ultimately, who knows what's ahead, but I think with electric it presents an opportunity, and Yeah.
Okay. I mean, thinking about, both of you obviously work in retail environments. As we sort of wrap this up, what is it about retail, working in retail marketing, that you really enjoy the most?
For me, it's the fashion element.
Okay.
So I've just always been interested in fashion, and the only way I could see to get into it was via retail.
Okay.
And I love it because of that kind of, not even so much like lifestyle-y element.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Anne-Marie?
I am all about analytics. So I just love seeing things go from, I love funnels like page views to then reserving online, and seeing how that whole process works and that analytics side of it. So obviously I'm speaking from a digital perspective. I love being able to harness that and be able to make decisions with that and improve user experience and everything online with that. So that's what sort of appeals to me on it, because I love delving into it. Even in my previous role, I was e-commerce manager for a health food company, and I love seeing sales. I suppose with retail, you love, there's sort of a nice feeling when you do a bit of marketing activity and you can see that what's produced out of that, and you can see all of the analytics that goes with it, and digital gives that benefit that you can sort of analyze every single thing and every element of it.
No, I mean, it's interesting hearing that two very different reasons for people working in retail marketing, because one of the reasons, one of the things we wanted to do with this whole future marketing series was give people an idea of the kind of skills that would be required to do the marketing job in different sectors.
Yeah.
But the more we talk about individual sectors, you realize, well, there isn't one answer.
Yeah.
That it depends, whatever is the thing that really excites you and gets you out of bed in the morning, that you can do that in whatever sector you want to go into. So either from the analytics side or from the physical fashion and that sort of thing, you can do all of that within retail, and it's not one type of person can do the retail marketing job. There's a whole broad range of people who can do really well in it and find the right
100%.
place for them.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. We're working on our schedule for the live series for the first few months of 2023, and we will have that live within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if you keep an eye on the social channels, that's where you'll find us. Thanks for joining us tonight and for joining us for the series so far. And hopefully we'll see you in 2023. And if it's not too early to say it, happy Christmas.